Hi, I'm Skinny Cheeks, and this will be one of several videos covering new info from the Update 31 patch notes for the Waking Flame DLC. Like I did with the Blackwood chapter, the full patch note reviews will be over on Twitch, and then I'll break them down here on YouTube. So in this video, I'll cover the new rewards for the worthy sets, and then also go through all of the gear sets that got reworked. I won't be going through the 8 new dungeon sets. We were able to get a glimpse of all of those on the ESO live dungeon preview, and I already did a video covering all of them, so make sure to check that one out if you want to take a look at the new dungeon sets. Nothing has changed with those as of week 1, and if anything does change in future patches, I'll make sure to cover it. Alright, let's get into it. So the first of the 3 new rewards for the worthy sets is called Dark Convergence. And by the way, all of these tooltips that I got screenshots of, I was at just a little over 6,400 weapon damage, which is kind of their center point that they designed the values around. So if you are higher or lower than that, these tooltip values may vary a little. So the 2-piece is Max Magicka, 3-piece Penetration, 4-piece Weapon and Spell Damage, and then for the 5-piece, casting abilities that leave an effect on the ground will create an area that applies a 30% snare and pulls enemies every 2 seconds after a 1-second delay and stun them for 1 second. After 4 seconds, the area deals 8,800 magic damage to all enemies in the area and 17,000 magic damage to enemies within 3 meters of the center, increasing by 10% for each target. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. So the developer comment on this was, this set was designed with one goal in mind: kill large Zerg groups. Pesky Zerg sitting on your keep or resource flag, send them to the void by pairing this set with some hard CC and immobilizes. This definitely is a more PvP focused set, but as I deal more in PvE, I'll try and cover it from that angle. For shorter duration ad waves with the large amount of lower health enemies, this could possibly be used in PvE as well. Probably better suited for dungeon packs than trial ones though, but it would be easy to help the tank gather everything and then blow it all up. The big drawbacks are the 3-meter radius for the bigger damage component of the explosion and the long cooldown. And since elite enemies won't be pulled, it is likely that they won't be right in that 3-meter radius spot when the explosion goes off. But for big packs with lots of little ads, I can see this being kind of fun. I don't see it being used a ton in PvE though. Next up is the Plague Break set. This gives 2-piece Penetration, 3-piece Weapon and Spell Damage, 4-piece Weapon and Spell Damage, and then on the 5-piece, dealing direct damage to an enemy turns them into a Plague Carrier for 10 seconds, dealing 17,800 disease damage over the duration. If the Plague is removed early, it explodes, infecting enemies within 8 meters of the carrier, dealing 16,000 disease damage. This explosion deals an additional 10% damage per enemy hit. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Alright, so the developer comment on this one. Similar to Dark Convergence, we targeted large groups again with this set, focusing on their ability to have numerous purges running, making locking them down and bleeding them out incredibly difficult to do. Now larger groups must purge more carefully, running the risk of setting off ticking time bombs and having to heal up the aftermath instead of repeatedly casting it with reckless abandon. So again, this is a very PvP oriented set, and unlike the previous set, this one actually won't really even work in PvE unless you're just wanting that upfront dot, and there are better sets available if that's what you're going for. Since PvE enemies don't purge, you won't ever get that secondary effect. It does seem pretty interesting for PvP though, lots of big ticks of damage going out with these new sets. And then finally we have Hrothgar's Chill. This is a heavy set and it gives max health, armor, offensive penetration, and then stunning or immobilizing your enemy causes them to burst with frost magic, applying the chilled status effect and dealing 26% of their total physical and spell resistance as frost damage to themselves and enemies within 8 meters of them. This effect can occur once every 7 seconds. This one's really interesting too. A lot of people in PvP will stack beyond the resistance cap of 33k physical and spell resist to account for incoming debuffs that will lower their armor. It seems like this set is made to combat against that a bit, as everyone standing near that person that is stunned will also receive the damage that they take. So let's just do a couple of scenarios here. If someone is stacking, let's say 40k physical and spell resistances, as soon as they are stunned or immobilized, they will explode for over 20k damage on themselves and everyone within 8 meters. This seems really nice. Even on lower resistance targets, say 20k physical and spell resistance, that should still be around a 10k hit, which isn't too bad for AoE damage. Looking at it from a PvE perspective, mobs have 18,200 resistances, so this would only go up to about 9,400 damage in an AoE, but it is a guaranteed chilled proc to open up a pool, but won't be enough to keep chilled up since it has a 7-second cooldown. Another big issue with it is that you have to be able to stun or immobilize at least one of the mobs of the pack, so if they are elite size mobs, the set won't be able to trigger. So overall, I don't really see this one getting used a whole lot in PvE either, but it seems really good for PvP. So I did try to take some PvE angles. I know that 3 of these sets are really made for PvP, and that's mostly what they're for. I wanted to try to see and explore if they would be worth it at all in PvE, and I don't really think it's a bad thing to have more sets with a focus just on the PvP area, especially since they drop from the rewards of the worthy mails that you get for earning alliance points. I just wanted to cover all the possible PvE use or lack thereof, since my channel is mostly focused around PvE content. Hopefully these sets will be some nice new tools for the PvP community. Alright, now I'll go through all of the gear sets that were reworked or had major fixes to them. I won't go through every set that was listed in the patch notes, as some just had some very minor back-end bug fixes, but anything I thought was relevant, I'll include here. So the first 2 sets we'll go through here are kind of bug fixes, but also slightly changed designs as well. Meritorious Service and Powerful Assault. Fixed an issue where these sets did not properly follow their intended sorting behavior with how they applied to targets. They will now prioritize nearby players to the wearer of the set that do not have the effect active already. I'm so glad they got around to fixing this one. So these sets were extremely buggy and would, for whatever reason, just not apply hardly at all to certain group members. The original design intent was to have it target those closest to you, regardless of whether they had the buff or not. So in order to apply to a full 12-person group, the wearer would have to position themselves with each cast to change who was closest to them. However, this wasn't even working correctly, and the buff would ignore people even if they were closest and didn't have the buff on them. Now the design has changed to prioritize those that don't have the buff active, so it should be much easier to apply to everyone in your group who is in range. Really glad they got around to not only fixing this, but actually changing the way it works too. This set was a little frustrating, especially seeing others in your group that would get amazing uptimes on it when you barely got any at all. Alright, the next change we'll cover is with the set Deadly Strike. This one actually wasn't in the patch notes. I'm not sure what happened with it, I guess it got overlooked, but I think it is a pretty interesting and significant change to it. Previously, this set was a 20% buff to your physical, bleed, poison, and disease damage over time and channeled abilities. It did get a small nerf down to 18% from 20%, but they took off the stipulation of what kind of ability it has to be. So now all damage types, as long as they are damage over time or channeled, will be boosted by the 5-piece bonus. This is pretty cool and another tool that opens up some more build diversity. I did a little testing on my Stamplar, and it is pretty nice having it now boost your Ritual of Retribution and your shooting star damage. I also tried it out with the Flame Staff backbar, and holy crap, Destro ults hit so hard with this set. Having that Maelstrom Staff backbar got me nearly the same results as the Maelstrom bow. They've been slowly, from patch to patch, adding in small changes that allow more hybrid type setups to function better, and this is another one of those changes. It's a really cool design now, in my opinion. I could even see this set being pretty good on Magplar, since it will boost all of their dots, their spammable, and their execute. Though the 2 through 4 piece bonuses probably still hold it back from being optimal there, I definitely think it could be viable. I'll have to do a little testing with it though. Really hyped for this set now. Now let's go through the trial sets. The first here is the biggest change to trial sets, and maybe one of the biggest out of the whole set of patch notes. Roar of Alkosh. Increased this set's armor reduction cap to 6,000 up from 3,000. Perhaps damage dealers will finally wear it, but probably not. So, previously the armor shed from this set would scale with your weapon damage, but cap at 3,000. This amount was absurdly easy for a tank to hit and still get the full bonus. Bumping that up to 6,000 though is a different story. Not a hard number for a damage dealer to reach, but you don't see a lot of tanks running around with 6k weapon damage. One of the bigger complaints that we've seen recently for the viability of Stam DPS was the tough time they have reaching the penetration cap, since light armor magicka users got their pin built into their armor, while stamina medium armor wearers did not. I think this will help out a lot with that, but there is one big downside to this that I don't see a lot of people talking about. As a damage dealer, if you are setting up your total penetration amount that you're bringing with the 6,000 you'll be getting from this set factored in, you better hope whoever is running this is getting really good uptimes with it. Setting yourself up that way, anytime this buff falls off, you'll be 6k under the pin cap. That's bigger than missing Major Breach. So yes, a very nice buff to the set, assuming great uptimes, but there could be a lot of volatility if the wearer is not being properly fed and activating synergies. Just something to keep in mind if you are setting your group up, accounting for this 6k pin from Alkosh. Next up, we have Sulksan's Torment. This is a medium set from Rockgrove. Fixed an issue where if multiple players procced this set and had a soul active at any given time, anyone picking up a soul would remove all others around them in a 3-meter radius. It will now only remove the user's soul, so multiple people can properly use the set. So this was actually something that I had reported and saw people giving feedback on. Set is a little difficult to use already and was making it nearly impossible for multiple people to use in some situations. So hopefully this fixes that up a bit. I would like for this to maybe see that sweet roll treatment that the Grizzly Gourmet set got, where someone else can pick it up as well and you both get the buff. Maybe their secondary buff would be a smaller version of it or something, so it's not too powerful, but would make it an interesting mix of a strong damage set plus a support type of medium set. And you wouldn't have to be running all over the place if the essence falls in a weird spot. Maybe someone else that's closer would just grab it for you and then you could both benefit from it. So next up is Twilight Remedy. Fix an issue where this set could apply to yourself if you activated your own synergy. So the dev comment on this was, the power of the set is designed around it being selfless in nature and would require reductions in power to retain this oversight and behavior, since it was designed well before Unnerving Boneyard, Lady Thorn, or Blood Altar existed in their current forms. So I'm not really sure where this was super out of line. It just gives minor force and a heal, so I don't necessarily see how activating it yourself was really that overpowered. You're still giving up a 5-piece set for a buff that you could pretty easily get through skills or more traditional damage sets like Medusa or Zogvin. It does say ally in the tooltip, so if they are just cleaning it up based on the wording, fair enough. Maybe I'm overlooking something with this one though. Alright, next up is a craftable set that got a pretty big rework. Pelinal's Aptitude. Renamed this set to Pelinal's Wrath. This set now grants you a damage shield based on your weapon or spell damage and a stack of Wrath of Whitestrake for 10 seconds whenever you kill an enemy. Wrath of Whitestrake grants you up to 100 weapon and spell damage per stack, but causes you to take 1% of your max health as oblivion damage every second per stack, up to 10 stacks max. The set's 2 through 4-piece bonuses are now weapon and spell damage, offensive penetration, and weapon and spell damage rather than max health, stam recovery, and magicka recovery. The set no longer causes your weapon and spell damage to become the highest of the two values. So when I first saw this set doing the live review, I was thinking, oh no, Thracian 2.0. I didn't see that it had a 10-second timer on it. I was fearing all the DPS just constantly taking damage throughout a trial and needing healing at all times, even between pulls. Thankfully, you won't really be able to get enough killing blows to make use of this in trials, but I could see it being pretty cool in solo or 4-man stuff. Up to 1,000 extra weapon and spell damage, but a little bit riskier playstyle with the incoming 10% of your max health per second at full stacks. However, you also get a really nice shield with every kill as well. So if the heals are constantly rolling in, the shield could greatly help with anything that might hit you at the same time as one of your ticks, so that you don't take too much damage at once. Since the set is oblivion damage, it will tick away at your health underneath your shield, but at least you won't have to worry about taking blows against your health at the same time as those ticks are going off. I know a lot of people are a little upset that the old Pelinals was removed, but I think with the way the game is moving with more hybrid type stats being introduced, that set was on the way to being a bit irrelevant if it isn't already. This new version seems like a fun set that I'm definitely excited to check out. For the dungeon and arena sets, the first change was with the set Crusader. This set now gives you a damage shield based on your weapon and spell damage for 6 seconds and creates an area of effect beneath you for 10 seconds whenever you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability. Every 2 seconds, the area grants you and group members inside minor courage for 12 seconds. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds. The set's 2 through 4-piece bonuses are now weapon and spell damage rather than max stamina, stamina recovery, and max stamina. This set no longer increases your dodge chance bonus of roll dodge by 0.3 seconds. This seems pretty cool, definitely a lot more useful than the previous iteration of the set. I'm trying to wrap my head around the best kind of use for it still. A lot of groups have minor courage through the Yolnahkriin set on a tank, but this gives a little wiggle room for maybe a damaging off tank or a DPS to be in charge of that buff, since Yolnahkriin was restricted to activating from a taunt. The damage shield size seems pretty decent too, though it only activates once every 20 seconds. So I think the way that the buff works is that it should refresh that 12-second duration with every tick in the circle. So as long as you are in that circle for the final tick, you should get 100% uptime on the buff. Overall, it's pretty cool. Not the craziest set ever, but definitely looks like it could be useful in some scenarios. Alright, moving on to the monster masks. We'll start with Krog. This set's attack hitbox now better matches its visual effects and adjusted its visual frequency to match its actual frequency. Overall, this will slightly decrease the width of the attack, but increase the length by 3 meters. Not much to say really on this one, just a little bit larger coverage area for Krog. For Celine, updated this set to no longer spawn a real spirit bear pet and now summons a visual bear to maul your foes. This should significantly improve its performance without changing its behavior too drastically, other than fixing multiple issues where it could synergize with sets such as Necropotence. So I don't think anything is really changing with this set as far as how it looks. It just doesn't count as a pet anymore. Looks like the change is just there to help with performance. Next up is Stormfist. The Storm Atronach Fist from this set can now be properly dispelled, as it is pretty darn magical when you think about it. So not much different here either, just can be dispelled through actions like negates now. And then finally, Veladreth. This set's disgusting spores no longer explode after hitting a target, and instead now continue to travel in a straight line. Fixed a few edge cases where the set would fail to work with multiple users. So this is a really interesting change to the set. It doesn't affect how many spores can hit one target. That is still 1 per target max each time they shoot out. So for single target damage, this set is still pretty meh. However, the spores themselves are no longer capped at 3 targets, since they won't explode anymore and can continue traveling and damaging as many targets as they hit. This seems really fun for both PvE and PvP with large packs of enemies. Having these spores just go through the packs, wreaking havoc on everything they hit. I like the change a lot though, and I hope to see it used a little more in AoE situations. For the mythic items, we just have one change here. It's with Pearls of Elnaphi. Fixed an issue where this set was incorrectly proccing off damage abilities that healed you when they dealt damage. This set was balanced around frequently having to cast healing abilities, and this occurrence worked around that requirement, causing it to be significantly stronger than intended in some cases. So now pretty much the skill you use has to be first and foremost a heal ability, not a damage ability that also heals. Alright, and then for Overland sets, we have Nicholas's Heavy Armor. This set now grants a stack of Nicholas's Resolve for 5 seconds whenever you successfully block, which after 8 stacks you consume them and completely avoid the next direct damage attack made against you within 5 seconds. This set no longer has a 25% chance on blocking spell projectiles to reflect them back at the attacker. This one doesn't sound too interesting to me. Maybe it could be a bit trolly for someone blocking a lot of incoming attacks, but I don't know, not really a playstyle I've messed around with much, so I won't comment further on it. Sith's Touch. This set now grants 5% movement speed for 30 seconds whenever you kill an enemy, up to 20 times, and grants invisibility for 3 seconds when activating. The set's 2 through 4 piece bonuses are now max stamina, max magicka, and weapon and spell damage, rather than max health, and crit chance. This set no longer grants major berserk whenever you kill an enemy with the Blade of Woe. This one is another one that I probably won't use much, but looks like it could be interesting for farming and moving around quickly, maybe going on Blade of Woe killing sprees or something like that, I don't know. And then finally, Stygian. This set now grants hybrid stats rather than exclusively magicka based stats. Its 4 piece bonus is now offensive penetration rather than max magicka. The 5 piece bonus now requires you to be in combat to proc. Note that this will still work with successful sneak attacks. So I've thought for a while that this set was a little strange since it's a medium set, but it had all magicka type bonuses on it. So nice that it got this hybrid treatment and didn't make it useless for those that were already using it for the magicka bonuses, but now it also incorporates the stamina based stats for those that want to go with that playstyle. Alright, that's going to do it for this one. Really interested to hear what you guys think about the gear reworks. I really like a lot of them, and I think there's going to be some really interesting setups coming in the Waking Flame DLC. I want to give a big thanks to my current Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see how you can help support the channel through Patreon, I'll have a link in the description below. And a special thanks to Nicholas, Simon, Privy League Guild on PlayStation's EU server, Cougar's Bay in the Cougar Town Guild, Gandalf Legris, Stridegg, and Delta. Thank you all so much for stopping by. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.